da 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 da. Da 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 da.
I would say first, this was the year of AI video really breaking through.
We went from basically only having a chatbot at the start of the year to having MCP being rolled out universally, basically everybody working with it. Gemini itself is fully integrated with your email and your Google Drive and everything.
I find that everybody has this democratic access to creating whatever they want. And I don't know how the world is going to look, but I'm really thinking this through. Everybody sees the company too big to fail.
Apple's gone. Apple's gone. I mean, people think Apple has lots of money and that's going to save them. But let's be honest here. They have lost.
Hello, Aragorn. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Well, nearly anyway. I'm in Christmas vibes.
I am in Christmas vibe. I just spent 2.5 hours getting very simple groceries into the house. It's just crazy out here, but here we go. Yeah.
Well, that's what it takes to gain at least 2 pounds that you can then lose in January, February by going on, non-drinking and all back to the gym and all those good stuff.
And I already gained 2 pounds in your exquisite dinner you hosted yesterday. So.
Yeah, that was good. A bunch of 40-year-old guys coming together, agreeing to game, except for one guy. And then ending up only drinking and eating.
Yeah, philosophizing and having political discussions was very cool. Hey, we're actually both on well-deserved, I might add, holiday, but we agreed to come together and look back at everything we've discussed in 2025. What are the most prominent things that we remember from 2025, and look ahead a little bit and just spend an hour on doing that and wrap up the year with this final newsletter. So no news. I didn't view the news. I don't know about you. It's difficult sometimes. I want to park some interesting stuff, but let it go, Pat. Let it go. You can do it for a couple of days, right?
Yeah. We had this conversation yesterday. So one of our good friends is a real workaholic. And he said well, but I love my job. So I could work all the time. But for me personally, absolutely love my job because my job is this, right? Me, figuring out what's going on in the world, helping others prepare for that and thrive in an exponential time. But I really need to do some other stuff sometimes. So Christmas is going to be, my mom's going to be here, but I'm also going to spend some time gaming, playing some Arc Raiders and the new Diablo season. So, and I've been doing a little bit of that already. And that means also slightly decoupling from everything going on in the world, right? You need some downtime.
Absolutely, you need some downtime and some fresh perspectives. Give it some air to breathe. So you cannot singularity surf the entire day. Sometimes you have to rest on the beach as well with a nice cocktail, right?
Exactly, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, books I want to read. I bought a whole bunch of new books, also science fiction books that I really want to read.
I'm looking forward to hear what you can achieve in a week in reading. Yeah. Hey, I looked at your document and I have some things in my document as well. So my first pick is about AI outsmart humans in IQ. And I think that if I look back at 2025, and it arrived to me a little bit later in the year, how important this change was from a large language model to a large reasoning model. Already in January, we saw IQ measurements above 125. They climbed during the year, but the fact that we keep on talking about AGI, it's in the future, when is it here? The smartest entity in the world right now is already a non-biological being, right? I don't think there's any human being that can keep up. Can it do everything a human can? No, it cannot. But there's also the other way around. There's no human that can do what AI can do. IQs above 130 means it's in the 1% percentile of the world. Looking back at the entire year, and the moment this kind of hit me was maybe when we really used the O3 reasoning models. But it was quite an impressive one. Yeah. Yeah,
well, that ties perfectly into, of course, some things that I also wanted to dive into. Looking back, I think it's really important to realize that only 12 months have passed since, well, less actually, 11 months, because in January we did a look ahead, and later on I'll definitely go over all the predictions that we made and what happened to those. But it's important to realize that our second episode, so that was the end of January of the year, we were talking about O1, the first reasoning model by OpenAI. And it's really incredible because when I checked this, I had to double check because I just couldn't believe that we spoke about O1 in 2025. It felt to me like this must have been 2024, 2023 or longer ago. That's really what it felt like because that was such an incredible step change. It was the first real reasoning model coming out and it was showing this incredible progress. It was the first time that on the ARC AGI benchmark, we saw incredible progress. And that's less than a year ago. And as you see on this quick IQ results benchmark, because that's what you just spoke about, we literally went in little over a year, or a little under a year, we went from having an IQ that was basically just below the human average.
Yeah.
Let's see what we have here. GPT-4o vision is there. But we went to GPT-4o was also in this neighborhood. We went to at the end of the year where, GPT 5.2 Pro scores on average, somewhere in the high 120s, and Gemini 3 Pro scores near to 130. And now with Gemini 3 Flash, which is significantly cheaper and significantly faster, it scores more or less the same as Gemini 3 Pro.
Yeah.
So in a year time, we went from the bottom of the human average IQ to the absolute top genius level of human IQ at a ridiculously low cost. As we'll see later on, I'll discuss how, actually I don't need to discuss later on, I can discuss it now. The prices for frontier models again went down by 10x in a year. For some specific models, even by 100x in terms of prices going down. So, yeah.
Yeah, which means it's a commodity. Everyone in the world that can have $20 a month has an oracle in their pocket, right? That's basically what's happening here. And that causes a lot of change as well. Yep. Everybody has that intelligence now. What we're going to do with it is that's the big pivot that quickly is happening.
Yeah. And the really important thing here, I think it might be that if you're a smart person and you have a smart AI, then you're kind of doubling maybe your intelligence.
Or effectiveness.
Higher than the vast majority of humans, but you're doubling it. But let's say that you're an average person. You're anywhere between 90 and 100, which is average human level. You now have an AI in your pocket of 120 plus. So your leverage, that allows you to make up for so much of whatever you naturally lack in terms of intelligence, if you would do it right. And that is, I can't really pinpoint yet what that means for society and the economy, but I definitely think that it means that traditionally we see that really intelligent people, academic level people, they're not always the great entrepreneurs or the business people, right? Because yes, they're great at this kind of science thing, let's call it that simplified, but they're not always so great at taking action and converting that to actual economic impact or real life applications or whatever. Like in the Netherlands, we have the universities and then HBO, which is just one level lower tech. That's how we traditionally looked at it. That's where the people come from that really make the economy go, that make changes to the world. That's where engineers come from. And now what we're going to see is that those people, they can really leverage the intellectual level, cognitive level of AI to do even more and have an even greater impact. Yeah. And the bar there is lowered. So that's going to be very big over the next few years, I think.
So what's your pick?
Well, my pick is that I would like to re-emphasize that it was now almost a year ago that the World Economic Forum released the Future Job Report with the University of Amsterdam and one of the professors, Professor Volbert, whom I'm actually going to meet probably pretty soon, because he's also working with DPG and we're looking at this to building this program, even a television item on robotics and AI. I'm not supposed to talk about that, I think, but whatever. And it's so crazy that even a year later, we had elections, everything. And this entire year, it's never been an important topic on any political agenda. It's not been on the news, not in a real way. And it's just really hard for me to comprehend that, because this is the most incredible, most important fundamental development for the Western world. Period. And outside of the AI bubble and the robotics bubble, people are still not talking about it. And that is really crazy. And I just wanted to re-emphasize that. So if you're listening to this, if you're reading this, if you're watching our podcast end of this year or start of 2026, and you haven't already, go and check out the Future Job Report from January 2025. It's really important to read it and to understand what that means for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And not really cliffhanger, let's say preview. One of my predictions for next year is that people will take notice with that type of news, but that comes later.
It does tie in one of the predictions that we did for this year and how that panned out. So we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, we also talked about this will be the year of the agents. And there were agents everywhere, but if I look back at what I thought it would be the entire year and what the ability of agents would be, I thought that I would be using them more autonomously myself. If I look back at the year, I would need to put a label on it. I would say first, this was the year of AI video really, really breaking through to a level that you cannot really tell any if it's different from that is AI generated. So I would say, if you look at the last meetup, and especially one of the specialists in the Innovation Network, Jan-Willem Blom, what he is generating and how quickly he is generating that, and how many commercials, outings are created with AI, and also the fact that something like Sora is enabling everybody to create deepfakes. We have talked for so long about this world is coming, and now we are in that world. We are in the fact that everybody basically has the ability to create at least a crisp video of 10 seconds. But if you are a little bit understanding what you're doing, you can connect those into a longer video. You basically have Hollywood in your pocket.
Yeah. So I took the liberty of starting up this background video.
Progressing within expected parameters, my lord. Dermal tissue is stabilizing, though extensive scarring remains.
So this is basically a fan-made Star Wars video movie of what happened right after Anakin Skywalker turned to Darth Vader. And he had been operated on and he's kept alive. And he's sitting there in his room and he's having these memories of what happened while he's getting his treatment.
Wow, I didn't see this yet. It looks pretty impressive.
It's crazy. And I'm not sure what the quality is set to right now. Yeah, it's 720p, so I can set it to 4K. I don't know if that's something you can see on the stream or on the recording, but this is all AI, right? This is all AI. So this is look at the quality of this production. So this is somebody in their basement doing this, right? That's really the thing you got to keep in mind. So it's really worth watching. It's just incredible, the quality in all of this. It could have been a Star Wars movie, but
there's so much coming from this stuff that I used to see all of those cool AI movies. An option. That's no longer an option. There's so much cool, good stuff coming out. Yeah. So you wanted to say something.
Well, I just wanted to say that although I agree that we've made tremendous strides in AI movie and film, and I think that right now Hollywood is certainly starting to feel the hot breath of this. I mean, can you imagine that it was beginning of this year was it the beginning of this year that there was a SAG strike, or was it last year? Man, I'm so confused. But there was this point where actors started to protest and etc. And even right now, there's this massive conversations. Argrators as a game basically didn't even get any awards in the audio game awards division or section, or what do you call that category, because they used AI for voices, even though it was all perfectly done right. So there's still kind of this animosity and this rejection of AI in many ways. But unlike you, I would definitely not characterize this year as the year of AI video. I think 2024 was the year that people became aware that AI video was on the rise and that it was going to go somewhere, and people were starting to realize that.
Last year we branded the year of AI video. But for me, now it's here, right? It's actually here.
Yeah. And you can argue that AI agents haven't gone mainstream yet, right? But I think that's the same as with video last year. It's definitely not mainstream yet. But if I look at how agents have progressed this year, we went from basically only having a chatbot at the start of the year to having MCP being rolled out universally, basically everybody working with it, where platforms like Perplexity have an AI agent included that has all these connectors automatically integrated to your mail, your Drive. Gemini itself, which is a product that's available to basically anybody with an Android phone and a Google account, is fully integrated with your email and your Google Drive and everything. The fact is people are not using it yet because people are just slow to realize that it's there, and Google is not really pushing this aggressively, right? But if you go to your Gmail now, you can already use Gemini to look in your emails, to do a lot of stuff, and they're adding features all the time. So it's very incremental. But if you compare to where we are at the end of the year in terms of what's possible, like for example, before this recording, I asked Gemini in our Google Doc for our episodes, can you just look at the last 22 episodes and give me a rundown of the most, incredible things that have changed that we covered this year and the progress that's been made between when we covered it and today. And it just gave me, this quick overview. Yeah. Anything like that. And then it even, tied in, the progress and the research. So you have an assistant right there looking with you at your documents. We really have to realize, and it's hard because we already kind of adjusted to what's the reality now. But at the start of this year, you could not do that. You would be lucky if you could upload the document to ChatGPT if you had a paid account, and then you could ask it maybe a question about that,
and
right?
You highlight something very important, right? Because the level that you are currently using it is a nice prediction for how more people in mainstream will start using it next year. So everybody would have access to that in that similar level. So because the same happened with video, right? That's now on everybody's mouth.
But you as well. Yeah. How much do you use GenSpark?
A lot. I do it a lot. Yeah, exactly. I just more into enterprise adoption. Yeah. So from a mainstream perspective, I think it's the year of the video. But I agree. Next year here we roll into the predictions again.
And enterprise. Lovable is probably the biggest unicorn of this year, which is basically agentic coding, then Salesforce and ServiceNow and all of these companies we work with are integrating AI in every level. Dreamforce for Salesforce, and I don't want to advertise them, but it was basically all about, how they've been putting AI everywhere in everything.
Yeah.
We've seen massive layoffs because companies, have been using coding and agents to do that. We've seen the biggest AI basically run hack in history, run by a Chinese hacker who was basically only steering a AI manager Claude, which was running hundreds of individual Claude agents to hack.
Yeah.
Like, if this wasn't the year of agentic AI, I don't know what was. It's just, maybe it's just going so fast.
It also has to do with the names, right? I think most of the people are thinking about more towards an assistant type of agentic. All the examples that you gave are all agentic as well. I kind of realized that as you bring them up. So definitely a big progression, but not yet the Jarvis type of assistant that you can stand on a mission as a consumer. Non-technical.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's not like you can walk into a room and you can say, hey, Jarvis, can you just go and do this for me? And then just go and have a coffee in the kitchen. But even Gemini 3, which has been making massive waves, first Pro, and then, of course, OpenAI tried to catch up with 5.2, and then Google just casually released Flash to show them, we are way ahead of you because we can do the same, but we can do it for a fraction of the cost and in half the time with this super fast, super cheap model. And this is, of course, simplifying. You have to keep in mind that the big thing about Gemini is that it's all built for this agentic age. There were multiple different Gemini mystery models out there in the wild to be tested that you could experience also in the AI Google Studio. And they might be better at some individual things, but they picked the model that was best at the multimodality, being able to understand the visual world around us, being to understand context, so that they're really growing this kind of assistant, this Jarvis. And we're much, much closer to it now than we were at the start of this year. If I look at the conversations I have, we haven't recently done that, especially not with Gemini. Hey, Gemini, we're just doing a rundown of 2025 and the biggest things that happened in AI. What are your thoughts on that?
2025 has been quite a year for AI. We saw some significant developments, particularly in open source models, with China making major strides. There was also a lot of focus on industrial AI and the integration of AI and robotics in various industries. And AI has become an even bigger topic globally, influencing both economies and geopolitics. Was there a particular area you were interested in?
No, that's it for now. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to that and you compare that to how this sounded a year ago, which was also good and cool. But, again, and another thing is that this model, right, at the start of this year, the voice model was separate from the main model. So the reasoning capabilities of the voice model were significantly less. But at least for Gemini, this is now the same model as the Gemini 3 model you talk to when you're chatting with it, with the same reasoning capabilities.
In the summer of 2025, Google at one of their events showed a guy working on his bicycle called Project Astra. It was kind of a future prototyping way of video. And 6 months later, we have access to it all. Basically, you can now recreate that video yourself if you want to. All the technology is almost there.
Yeah, look, so when Project Astra, you saw that it was also going to YouTube and then scrolling through it. And yes, I can use Gemini to open YouTube, but that is not fully there yet. But we're definitely really close to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move to the next topic, your pick, Aragorn.
I would like to dive into the predictions we did in January this year for this year and to just quickly go over them.
Cool.
I took our document from last year for the newsletter and I fed it to Perplexity and I said, well, look, this is the predictions we did for last year. What happened to those? So this is our newsletter page where all our newsletters are. So our first episode of 2025 was episode 21, 2025. And here you see that we did 2 rounds of predictions, right? So the first round of predictions was that by the end, we expected 3 to 4% job displacement in Western economies. First wave of AI-driven corporate restructuring, particularly in Fortune 500 companies. We expected major tech companies to reduce their workforce by 20 to 30%. We expected the emergence of AI manager roles overseeing automated systems. The first major protest and union actions against AI automation. And then on the next round, which had to do with AI's quantum leap, Oh, we did it for every topic. Oh, wow. Okay, so we made a lot of predictions, and I think we should just go over all of these. So when it comes to the AI job displacement, which was the first one, the result that I have here, looking at this. So what we saw is that we actually saw up to a 13% job displacement rate in specific roles, for example, cognitive blue collar roles like writing, junior coding, data entry. So there are specific sectors where we went way, way beyond the 3 to 4% job displacement across Western economies.
And I think that if you look to the official layoffs numbers from major tech company, they might not reach 20 to 30%. But what's not taken in consideration, they have not hired anything, but almost have double growth in revenue. The emergence of new AI manager. Well, if you look to the AI dinners of the innovation dinners that we do, and you look at the roles that we have at the table, at the beginning of the year, not so much people overviewing AI specifically, but innovation managers, chief HI officers, many more people that have those type of roles. If you see those teams within organizations, so that also actually happened.
Yeah. So. I think that right now we don't see a complete 3 to 4% job displacement in the West yet. You could argue that we didn't actually meet this, but we've definitely seen a significant rise in job displacement in specific parts of specific industries where AI's impact can really be felt now. It's much higher than this 3 to 4% displacement. So I think that maybe we were a little bit too optimistic about this being across the whole board of all jobs. But then again, I think we probably underestimated the impact it would have on specific industries by the end of this year. Yeah. And I still think that we're really on course for this to be generally happening across the board in the next year.
Do you want to discuss this more? Because if we want to do all these 5 and we have 5 times 5, then we're way out of time.
Maybe we just pick a few of them. So first wave of AI-driven corporate restructuring is definitely taking place. I mean, we obviously saw that initially Klarna went from 7,400 staff to 2,500, and then they had to correct course. And the skeptics of AI have often said, well, Klarna went all in, but it failed. You know, they more than halved their workforce. And after they did that, they had to come back a little bit and say, okay, we went too far. But they definitely didn't go back to pre-AI levels. So argue that that is a significant restructuring. And we've been seeing this across the board. I mean, we both know that basically every tech company and also the financial industry and the big consultancy agencies, they've all been laying off people. And it's all due to AI. So I would argue that this has definitely come true. What is your take?
I agree with you. I commented off the other 3 already.
So we've seen AI protests. This is something that we predicted. We've definitely see all kinds of AI protests already taking place in different places in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that definitely came true. We predicted we would see AI models reaching the 250 plus IQ points. Well, we've definitely gone over 200 with the frontier models. So when you look at Google DeepThink, for example, which is of course not publicly available, I think we can be reasonably sure that GPT's frontier models internally that are not yet released can score over 200. And on average, if you have an expensive sub, you can have access to models that reach up to 180 at this point affordably. So I definitely think that we're on course, maybe a little lower than what I would have thought we might be at. But at the same time, if you look at how this IQ has gone up, all right?
This is also how far can you measure an IQ? It's a test for human intelligence, which has, the moment you go over 150, it becomes a little bit dodgy. What does it mean? What is 170? What is 180? What is 200? We don't really understand what does it mean, 250 IQ?
Yeah.
It's hard to measure and it gets fluffy. It's not a real test designed to go into those numbers. And I fall in the trap to kind of think, oh, we'll go 250, 350, 450. What does that mean? I'm getting a little back to that. So what we now see is that they go in some measurements over 150, but they can do consistent tasks for a longer time and get smarter in human-like tasks, more emotional tasks and other things than just IQ.
Yeah, so there's so many things you can say about it. But for example, like ChatGPT brought down the hallucination level significantly in the GPT models, which is still kind of a problem in the Gemini models. But you could argue that's also a very important measure, which actually adds, because, you know, having a high IQ and then also being extremely reliable is important. Just to give, to bring back to that, ArcGAI at the start of 2025 was still a benchmark we thought would be valuable. And we were forced to invent ArcGAI 2 because basically we saw really rapid saturation of ArcGAI 1, right? So this is being able to think abstractly or to visualize visual pattern recognition, things that come very natural to humans. And then we invented ArcGAI 2. And we saw that initially AI was very bad, and now towards the end of the year, we've seen massive growth again, right? So where this is starting to reach human levels or outperform human levels, we see humanity's last exam where accuracy has been going up really a lot over the last year, from GPT scoring 2.7 to Gemini scoring 38%. And it's really important to realize that this is an exam that even for most humans would be very hard to even reach these levels. Frontier math. At the start of the year, people believed that AI was never going to be able to do math because this was the big problem of large language models. They couldn't reason, they couldn't do math. And this is the hardest math test in the world. And we see that, GPT scored 16.7 high and Gemini 3 Pro scored 18.8%. And again, I want to stress that if you think as a human, oh, that's not very high, no, 99% of the people watching this podcast or reading our newsletter couldn't even reach the 2% score on this test, right? This is the absolute hardest level of math you can imagine. So for an AI to score 18.8%, and this is also on a limited time frame, it's just incredible. Like, it's absolutely mind-blowing incredible. And that was impossible a year ago. Impossible, right? So
hey, let's do one more and then move on to the next topics.
every single day at Innovation Network, Patrick Willer and I research and work to understand how artificial intelligence and other emerging frontline technologies are reshaping the meta-trends of innovation. The age of humanoid robotics, artificial intelligence, the metaverse, biotech, longevity, and more is upon us. And understanding how the incredible progress and innovation resulting from these will reshape our society, our economies, and lives is paramount. So that's what we do. And we want to share our findings with you. And that's why every 2 weeks, we release our latest insights in our Innovation Network newsletter, which is just a 2-minute read. Or you can listen to our 1-hour podcast or watch it on YouTube if you want to go deep. It's not for you if you don't want to understand how our world is changing, what it will mean for you, your kids, your life, or your business. It is for you if you really want to understand where this world is heading, if you want to get ahead of the curve. We also organize dinners, meetups, safaris, where we show what's happening on the front lines of innovation and tech. And for visionary leaders and entrepreneurs, we organize our China Expeditionary Force to go and see where the future is going to take us in the land of innovation itself. If you want to get ahead of the curve, hear about what's going to happen in your life 10 years ahead of anybody else, make sure to go sign up to Innovation Network newsletter and join our channel. That's it for now. Mr. Metaverse signing off, and like I said in the Netherlands, see you later.
So, not really, not bad.
I think we didn't do too bad at all.
Some learning curves there as well. Yeah. Hey, just quickly, a last thing that I thought was remarkable if I look back to the past year is the fact that Trump got into office this year. It feels like it's been longer. That's the beginning of 2025, right? I'm not mistaken.
No, you're not mistaken. I'm not sure what you find interesting about it. I mean,
so what I find so interesting about it is the big shift in the entire world the moment that he takes office, and especially in the whole race towards who gets dominant in AI, and the fact that whatever you think of him and whatever he is doing in the rest of his policy cannot really make judgment. But one thing is, what, from my perspective, that I think he's doing very well for the USA is getting everybody aligned on we need to win an AI race. He sees the importance of AI as the flywheel for the fourth industrial revolution, and he's going all in with that. You can say whatever you want about Elon Musk into Doge, and a lot of people have all kinds of opinions about it, but the fact that you attempt to clean house with an entrepreneur, these type of things, I would have never guessed or predicted in 2024. Not at all. This was kind of a crazy outcome. Look at the world has changed with him in office from that specific perspective, making the USA an AI first company, and the effect also what happened in China. I thought it was a remarkable, let's say, foundation that we lived on in 2025.
Yeah.
And now I want to give a penny for your thoughts.
Yeah. I'm trying to digest that, metabolize that. I remember that this time last year, or maybe a little later, me and one of my very close friends, we were discussing Trump coming into office and all the potential horror or good that could come from that. And, we disagree on a lot of things, but I think that we both agreed. We were both very apprehensive about how much damage Trump could do to the world. And I'll be honest, right? I was happy the Democrats didn't win the election in the US because I still believe that would have been worse in many ways. But I also was very aware that it was basically the choice between two evils. There was no right way to go. And just, to quickly reference the last few days and the Epstein files stuff happening, for those that haven't been following, the Epstein files have been released, but not exactly in the way they were supposed to. They've been extremely heavily redacted. And the whole thing has been very unsatisfactory, leading to the point where it just creates more questions. But one thing that we did conclude is that there's a lot of photos in there of Trump, and there's a lot of photos in there of Bill Clinton. So one a conservative and one a former Democratic president. And all I can think is, without saying anything too much, is like, what the hell was going on there? Yeah. And how can all of these people be involved? And it just shows that I think that we can be fairly certain that evil is on all sides of the political spectrum in many shapes and forms.
So yeah, it will also take time, right? It will take time, like 5 or 10 years, to look back at the effects of all these kind of things. You have to put them in time perspective. This is too big of change.
It is. And I always liked Clinton as a president, even despite all the controversies. And he did a lot of good stuff. Like, it was Bill Clinton who made sure that GPS was not technology only for the U.S. Defense Force, but for the whole world. And he saved probably hundreds of thousands of lives by giving that to airplanes around the world and things like that. So it's never so black and white. And the thing that surprised me most is how little damage Trump has done, from my perspective, compared to the expectations and how many things I agreed with in terms of the policies that he's done. But at the same time, I also recognize that we are in a more divided world than we have been in half a century.
Yeah, I'm not saying something good about it. It was just very in your face the entire year. Not a day passed without Trump and the effects of Trump. And what I somehow like about it is the fact that we are now aware that the world is volatile and we should be careful with it. So we're more on the outlook of what can happen. We understand that not everything is order. There is chaos below the order, and it's a thin layer, and we have to be careful with it and have to take care of it. And that the fact that we understand it all and see it all is, I think, more positive than resting asleep thinking that this world order will always stay the same and we can just rest assured it's some kind of status quo, because there's no status quo. Things are changing faster than there is. And the awareness of that is, I think that's an important thing. I kind of like it.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before in previous episodes. I really believe we're in a second Cold War. And this Cold War is not between Trump and Europe. It's between the US and China, mainly. The whole world is more on edge. The whole world is more volatile. But it's also these kind of circumstances, the war in the Ukraine. If you just look at what that's done, for example, for drone technology, like, there are a lot of sides to a more unstable warlike world that have the potential to do great good. This is really the hard part about this. If you look at the space race and the first Cold War, everybody has a microwave in the West, and you use it every day to heat up food, right? We wouldn't have that if it hadn't been for the Cold War and the space race. Velcro, right? How often do you use Velcro? Every jacket these days has Velcro. If you're going outside in the Netherlands right now and it's raining, you have a rain jacket and it has Velcro. There's 1,000 inventions like that came straight out of the space race as a result of the massive scientific progress that was made in that period. From that perspective, this could be really good for humanity. But at the same time, it requires us to be in that position where things could go horribly wrong. And that's something that doesn't keep me up at night, but that's probably just because I'm a really good sleeper, not because I'm not extremely worried.
Yeah, I hear what you say. Can I just pick very briefly one that kind of belongs to that? Because I myself was also thinking OpenAI is the absolute leader in AI, and it will be the biggest company ever, and all these kind of things that you kind of go through your mind. And then you step in this trap. And I kind of also followed people saying, oh, Google will go away. Who will now use Chrome anymore? Nobody will use Chrome, right? Everybody will use OpenAI. And look at what happened just a couple of weeks ago when they released Gemini 3 and Nano Banana. They completely take over the whole thing. There's red alerts with OpenAI. And this, again, shows that volatility that big companies that were S&P 500 companies, we talk about, well, you're not safe if you're 50 years old. Well, you're not safe if you're 2 or 3 years old either. This change will continue to go very, very quickly, and new companies will become super big in a very short time. I thought it was very remarkable, the return of Google. And well, you always go all the way on Apple, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they were completely gone in 2-3 years. That can just happen. I kind of see the Apple light now.
Apple. Oh, you mean about Apple? Oh,
That is, everybody sees the company
gone.
too big.
Apple's gone. I mean, people think Apple has lots of money and that's going to save them. But let's be honest here. They have technically officially declared that they have lost because they cut a deal with Google to have Gemini be the AI for every iPhone. And by doing that, they also basically betrayed every single iPhone, iOS user. Because they promised them, no, we're going to keep you safe. You're going to be in our little walled garden. You're going to give up all your freedom. But in return, you will know that it's all safe. Nobody can have your data. It's fine. We're going to take care of you in the Apple world. Yeah. But now it's like, oh, sorry, you got to eat the Google and they're just going to take all your data because you have to use Gemini because we failed. And Google, iPhone users are just like, all right, okay. It's just crazy.
It never gets boring. Promise me one thing for 2026. You do not stop the Apple bashing. Okay, let's speed it up a bit and let's do some predictions for 2026.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, predictions for 2026. So my prediction here is that 1 year from now, we will have what you want in terms of agentic AI. I think that I'll take 1 minute to go into that.
Yeah.
If I look at how I use AI right now, where I go in Google Studio or even on Codex, and the speed with which we can produce an app or working software. And you made an incredible app for our meetup without really any prior programming experience. Is it perfect today? No. Is it very low entry bar? No. It still requires some kind of basic knowledge, understanding, willingness, investment. But if we follow the trajectory from where it was a year ago to today, and we extrapolate that to a year from now, we can easily infer that we will come to a point where I can which I basically already talk to my computer, tell this is what I need, make it work. And today it's only web apps that come out of it, and there's some limitations. But I think we'll have a software platform a year from now, probably from Google itself and others, where it can code you any kind of software, any kind of app that you need, and even then publish it or deploy it like a real software so that I just can click an Exe file, have a shortcut on my desktop, and I can open it and it can do anything for me. Yeah. And I think a year from now, we'll always have the level of integration where it will already be able to be set up to use APIs. So we can tie different AIs in it to do different things or connect it to our Canva or whatever. So that will bring that whole idea of having that AI assistant that you can talk to and that can do stuff in your house much closer. Google has announced that they're going to upgrade all of their Google Home equipment to include Gemini. This will take, because I have a Google television and that stuff. So that means that I will be able to talk to my television, and it might even be able to do stuff on my PC by the end of this year. We will have Microsoft Windows although right now Copilot requires MPU chips, so not every laptop comes with it, but I'm pretty certain that by the end of the year, there will be a fairly big percentage of laptops and desktops, and maybe even they'll find some way to include this in legacy models like myself, because I have a 5090, I can run it on there, where you can run that AI Copilot on your Windows and you can talk to your Windows operating system. I think all of that's going to be there. And then aside from that, that means that we're going to have much, much more AI integration in other software suites. So product like the Salesforce of this world, every kind of software you use for your business will have an AI integrated by the end of 2026 that will be able to talk to you, where you can give it voice commands and it can basically already do everything for you and potentially even code additional features into it itself if required. I think we'll see some first serious experiments with robots in the natural habitat of humans in houses. I mean, X1 has been rolling out basically, the €499 a month model, which we talked about this yesterday in Kai Fu Lee's AI 2041. You have a chapter that's about, I think it's called The Golden Driver. It's about how there's a tech company where you have autonomous vehicles, but in specific certain calamity situations, the vehicles can be taken over by human drivers that are basically like FPV pilots, like drone pilots that we have today. So they remote control it from a distance to save people. So this whole chapter is about what will happen in a world where we have autonomous vehicles in specific, really complicated situations you can train AI for. I think a lot of that will be a reality by the end of 2026. 2026. Maybe not on a mass level, maybe not for billions or millions of people, but those things will exist. There will be cars driving around in Europe, in Asia for sure, and in the US that are autonomous and that maybe potentially can be taken over by a remote driver. In special circumstances, we will have robots that do a lot in the home, but for specific circumstances, are controlled by humans. And it won't be millions of people having it, but there will definitely be tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people running with this. And that will accelerate the progress in this industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of points. And I think with everything you said, I kind of agree with all of that. I would be surprised if that does not happen.
I think we'll have our first AI data centers from SpaceX.
Right.
So these might not be massive yet, but I literally just saw that in the US yesterday, I think it was, I forgot the university name, they managed to beam energy with a directed microwave beam from a satellite to Earth and back.
It's amazing. And that's not a constraint.
No, but this is massive because this means that we could technically launch satellites that we can then power or recharge from Earth, for example. Or we could have power plants in space that beam energy back to Earth, right? Stuff like that is happening. It's progressing really rapidly.
So one of the things is, and we talked about a little bit earlier in this conversation already, is that we've been talking about deepfakes and the fact that AI can create all types of media. And even in my book, there's a quote that by 2026, more than 90% of all data will be synthetically created.
Yeah.
We have to pause a little bit to think about the impact of that. More than 90% will be synthetically created. I think 2026 will definitely be the year where even experts like you and myself, we fall in a trap already a couple of times, cannot even tell if something is real or not real. So far, a lot of people were fooled by some videos, but now we will enter in that people will really need to distinguish it, and there will be bad actors playing with it. And I do not know where it will lead to, but it will be on a larger scale than we've seen in 2024 and 2025. On the back of that, also, it's fine that everybody has this democratic access to creating whatever they want. And I don't know how the world is going to look, but I'm really thinking this through. What does it mean if everybody can create and send and starts talking and starts sharing? What does it do with the receiver and the listener? Communication has always been a two-way street, especially when you're in a space, and that's also why our dinners are working so fine. And I'm really a bit worried about the ability for people to really listen to it, or people start sharing something that people don't care about. What's the value of talking if nobody is listening? That is interesting. And on the back of that, and we've discussed this, was maybe it's good to reiterate it, the big success that we had our past year is our innovation dinners, where people really have as always with a humane, philosophical, human connection to talk about the impact of this. And I think we're going to double down on the human factor, the impact for humans of all this technology more in 2026. And I think, go ahead. React.
No, I can only agree. I do feel, and I think that this is important to mention, I think that you said this number of 95% of content will be synthetic. So it's funny how things can influence you that are top of mind. So like I said, I've been playing this game, Our Graders, and there's this content creator who's become basically really big on the back of this game. And his name is The Burnt Peanut. And he's a super funny guy, but basically he is a peanut. So when you're watching his stream, you see a peanut with two eyes and a mouth. And the thing is that, so on the one hand, his whole thing, the thing he couldn't be without technology, right? And it's funny because a lot of gamers seem to be very anti-AI, but if you think about it, like this person couldn't exist, make a living doing what he does without massive technological progress of the last decades. And not only is he playing a game that wouldn't be possible, he's streaming it to millions of people, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible. And he does it looking like a peanut, which would have otherwise never been possible. Yeah. But at the same time, the reason he's so popular is because we know, and this is funny because the whole internet is a buzz. Everybody wants to know, what does the peanut look like? Is that important for our lives? No. Does it change anything significant in my life to know what it looks like? No. But everybody wants to know. And so
how he looks in real life, you mean?
How he looks.
Yeah.
You know, we know he's a human being, but we want to know what he looks like for some reason. And so this is this intangible thing that humans have. There's these things that drive our behaviors, that hold our attention, that we can't let go, that have to do with things that make no real logical sense. And it is this thing that I think where we will see, and we've talked about this before, but I'm trying to comment it from a different angle, is that where even though there's this rise of AI and there's this AI created synthetic content and all of that, I think that there's something fundamental about human things, right? I believe that AI will come to a point where we cannot distinguish it from human in most, if not all situations. But it's not about that. It's about we want, even if there would be an AI generated burnt peanut who would be exactly the same as the real one, we would still differentiate, knowing that the left one is the guy that's actually really human.
Yeah.
And we still want to know what he looks like as a human being, even though it doesn't matter. And it's really important to get this, because I think that will drive that second renaissance, that second enlightenment, where we rediscover our own worth, our own value, our own humanity. And we stop quantifying it by saying, well, we're better than everybody else because we're smarter and stronger and whatever. That won't matter anymore. Maybe we'll finally start ourselves just for what we are, not because we're better or smarter or stronger. And that might open up a real new kind of good period for mankind. I don't know how else to describe it. And I hope that all of this makes sense, bringing in the burnt peanut and all of that stuff.
And it's a perfect bridge to my next point, because I think a premium on human connection and premium on human labor is something that comes on the back of this. And that is another plus we can put on how nice it is to be human, right? And I thought this was very ironic, because if you look at 2020, we went into the pandemic. Everybody got working from home. Something like all these online tools exploded to do video conferencing. And every major tech company said, hey, this is all okay. We can all sit down in a small room and have video conferences. And look now how this has pivoted within 5 years, how important the physical connection is going to be. And I hope we move into that direction once we are automated. Now already we see, if you look at the festivals, compare the festivals from now. Everywhere it becomes phone-free festivals. That is, everybody gladly does that, right? Everybody want to go. If you look at the images of these festivals and how people are going wild as a contrast to these constrained lives when they are just hyper-connected and almost to, let's say, Byung-Chul Han calls it the burnout society. I think this is the counterweight, discovering what it is to be human, to enjoy life in that way, to do more festivals, to do more human connection and build a smaller communities is going to be on the back of that. So, and I thought it's very ironic. Within 5 years, we went to one extreme, now to the other extreme. But this extreme is going to stay, I think.
Yeah. There was this thing, maybe it was a decade ago, but there was these festivals and where they had this kind of, motto, like, let's go and get lost. Laten we lekker gaan verdwalen. And I think that's really coming back. And I really think it's such an interesting development to see how AI, on the one hand, I think that it will significantly make our lives better and we'll be able to do, a lot, be even more connected and etc. But it's also in a kind of different, healthy way, also making us maybe finally more aware of that we don't always need to be connected and involved. And yes, I want to get a chip in my brain at some point and a cybernetic eye, right? But I also want to have the ability to turn it off and go and walk in some woods in a reservation somewhere or whatever and experience nature, right? And I think that these things can exist together at the same time in the same person, right? But maybe it's just a matter of us becoming a little bit more aware of that and a little bit more aware, a little bit less accepting of it. We need to be more aware of that so we can make better conscious choices, because ultimately it's all about conscious choices. A guy asked me on LinkedIn today, how do you feel about AI making everybody more stupid because we don't do anything anymore? I said, well, the same way I felt about the calculator, right? Calculator didn't stop progress or mathematics going or physics. But somebody in a supermarket giving you change, they don't need to do any calculations anymore. Like the person at the counter 10, 20 years ago, she could calculate like the best of them. Now you just swipe your phone and you paid, and nobody does that. Does that mean that we're degrading? No. Does it mean that maybe we should be more conscious of the skills that we want to acquire, how we want to train our brains? Yes. We still go to the gym to be strong because we don't go wood chopping or mammoth hunting every day anymore. So we still need to kind of compensate for that somehow. And we make conscious choices about that. And that will become even more important. And I think that maybe the most important realization is that what sets us apart as humans from most other species in the world is that we can make conscious decisions, that we have the capacity for conscious decisions. And I think, therefore, this whole revolution of AI might also be a revolution of human cognition and intelligence, where we finally start to realize how important it is that we use that ability to make conscious decisions about things.
Yeah, I like that. I like that whole way of thinking and your whole narrative there. I think on the back of a burnout society with so much pressure, we could end up rediscovering how important it is to be human, right? I was, during your conversation, thinking about a quote from Cillian Murphy, the guy who played Oppenheimer and was in almost all the Nolan movies. I saw this interview with him, and somebody said, well, don't you hate it that you are not in the casting in the Odyssey, the new Nolan movie? And his answer was, no, I have a JOMO, a joy of missing out. And,
I have a JOMO.
but I like it was
What
a genuine
legend.
answer,
He's
joy
such
of
a
missing out.
legend,
And
this guy,
if we
yeah.
can, because this fear of missing out that has captured an entire Gen Z generation to feel depressed if you cannot participate in all these things. Now there's so much going on that you cannot do anything. So FOMOs are really crazy. Let's move to the JOMOs, and time that is freed up for real human connection is going to be way more valuable. And that realization and that support from governments as well to free up the time and the need for everybody to do that is a biggie, I know. But that's the direction where we need to go.
I love it. Very good.
Can I do one more prediction?
Sure.
It's a little bit of a negative one on the back of these positive ones,
Oh,
but
let's skip it then.
no, it is because this is an important one, and I think maybe we should mention it so we can bend it or make people more understand what's going on. And we alluded it to the beginning of the conversation where you talked about World Economic Forum. We've been pushing this message quite a lot in newsletters and etc. I think 2026. We will really see the effect from all angles coming to corporate. So all these large organizations that have this 50, 60 to 100,000 plus employees, AI comes in on one side. They know they have to kind of let go some people. How will you do that properly? That is going to be a very big pressure point. Smaller companies with like 10, 20, 30 employees that can do a global service with just 50 employees. This whole discussion that a lot of tech people talk about, well, one entrepreneur or even an AI entrepreneur can start a company that becomes a big company. That we will see come into effect next year. And that will be a highlighted conversation into politics, into decision making. And I think that kind of underlines also that people have to prepare for that, understand what's coming, and think more like a singularity surfer, think more in different waves that you have to surf on and anticipate for. I think that will be a mainstream conversation next year.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said last night, I think that all of us should reread Kai-Fu Lee's 2041, AI 2041.
It's a good one, huh?
And I think Kai should republish the book, and he should redub it AI 2027 or maybe AI 2031, but he should shave at least 10 years off. 90% of what he wrote in that book will be incredibly actual and incredibly important. And it gives such a good idea of what's coming, right? There's this chapter called The Job Savior, and it's all about how the world is coping with the impact of AI and automation through robotics, the job market, and human labor becoming basically more expensive than AI and robotic labor, and therefore becoming obsolete, and all the challenges that poses. So I couldn't agree more.
Are we at the end, or do you still have some afterburner thoughts of predictions?
Well, the only thing I want to say to people is that maybe in the short run it feels weird, unnatural. We're looking at these maybe massive joblessness and all these shifts. But I really want to emphasize for people that everything you know, everything you believe, everything you've experienced, all of that is fairly new, right? We've seen more technological progress in the last 80 years than we've seen in the last 200,000 years. In the last 400 years, it's the same. But in the last 80 years, we saw the vast majority of technological progress. So 80% of what happened in the last 400 years or 90% of what happened in the last 400 years happened in the last 80 years. If you think that these kind of changes are too fast or unnatural, or that there won't be anything left, we won't know how to fill our lives, then you're wrong. We've been around for 1 million years. Yes, humanity's been around for 1 million years, and we've done just fine in the majority of that time, right? We've only improved and grown, and we've raised families, and we've been productive, and we've felt satisfied for the majority of it, for many of us. These changes, will get through them, and I really, really believe that we're in for even much better things. But there will be some turmoil. We cannot expect to transition in such a paradigm, massive change, and it'll just happen like that, like overnight, and it'll all be fine. You know, there will be some challenges. So all you need to do is you need to tough it out, stick it through, find ways to make the best of it so that you can come out on the other side. It's like, sometimes you're lucky you fall in love, and then sometimes you're unlucky and you fall out of love, and then what follows is a tough period. But you know that at the end of it, you'll probably be better and stronger for it, and you'll find new love. And that's what's going to happen with humanity now. So considering we're going into Christmas and the end of the year, and there's so much uncertainty, I just want to really emphasize that there's incredible potential at the end of this road, and not just kind of scary things.
Could not agree more. And you can rely on us to keep on doing what we're doing. We keep on organizing dinners. We will go through the news, making sense of it, keeping the positive note on what this means for humanity. How can we come out of that very positive? And yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to 2026. I think singularity surfing will become a firm. You will see much more of us on all types of channels. And we've got some nice things for you in store. Thanks for following us. Thanks for sharing the content and all the nice comments. Keep on doing that if you like what we are doing. What do they say in the Netherlands?
See you later. Every single day at Innovation Network, Patrick Willer and I research and work to understand how artificial intelligence and other emerging frontline technologies are reshaping the metatrends of innovation. The age of humanoid robotics, artificial intelligence, the metaverse, biotech, longevity, and more is upon us. And understanding how the incredible progress and innovation resulting from these will reshape our society, our economies, and lives is paramount. So that's what we do. And we want to share our findings with you. And that's why every 2 weeks, we release our latest insights in our Innovation Network newsletter, which is just a 2-minute read. Or you can listen to our 1-hour podcast or watch it on YouTube if you want to go deep. It's not for you if you don't want to understand how our world is changing, what it will mean for you, your kids, your life, or your business. It is for you if you really want to understand where this world is heading, if you want to get ahead of the curve. We also organize dinners, meetups, safaris, where we show what's happening on the front lines of innovation and tech. And for visionary leaders and entrepreneurs, we organize our China Expeditionary Force to go and see where the future is going to take us in the land of innovation itself. If you want to get ahead of the curve, hear about what's going to happen in your life 10 years ahead of anybody else, make sure to go sign up to Innovation Network newsletter and join our channel and follow us. That's it for now. Mr. Metaverse signing off, and like I said in the Netherlands, see you later.
Bridging the gap of exponential growth. Patrick and Aragorn share the truth. Join our community, let's innovate. With Innovation Network, create a brighter face.